That night, when the young man sat on the chair nobody ever touched, Chief Okechukwu dropped his spoon. His hand shook so bad that the rice scattered on the table. I was standing by the kitchen door, watching. The stranger did not even know what he had done. He just smiled and said, "Thank you, sir," as if nothing happened. But I saw tears gather in Chief's eyes. That was the first time somebody sat on that chair in 3 years. 3 years ago, that same chair used to belong to Madam Neka, Chief's wife. Since she died, Chief never allowed anyone to touch it. Every evening, he set food on her side, poured her drink, and talked as if she was still sitting there. People in the street said the old man had gone mad. Even my cousin told me to stop working in that house before something bad happens. But I couldn't leave him. There was something about Chief that made me pity him. Every day followed the same way. By 6 in the evening, I would finish cooking and carry the tray to the dining table. Chief would sit down, fix his eyes on the empty chair beside him, and begin to talk softly. Sometimes he laughed. Sometimes he talked like he was begging. And sometimes, when he thought I wasn't looking, he cried. He would wipe his face and pretend it was sweat. Then he would say to the chair, "Eat your food before it gets cold." I used to pray quietly that God should help him. The house was too quiet for someone his age. His only son, Chijioke, lived in Lagos and hadn't come home since the burial. Chief said he didn't blame him, but I knew he did. Every time Chief talked to that chair, I could feel the pain in his voice, like someone that wished to start life again but couldn't. That night, when the stranger came, I was already washing plates. Chief had just finished talking to the chair when someone knocked. The man looked gentle, said his name was Afani, and that he just moved into the area. Chief smiled like he had found company at last. He told me to bring another plate. But before I came back, the stranger had already sat down, right there, on Madam's chair. My body turned cold. Chief stared at him, eyes wide. Then he dropped his spoon. The food spilled. For a moment, nobody moved. The ceiling fan hummed. The wall clock ticked. Chief's lips moved slowly. I couldn't hear what he said, but his voice cracked like someone seeing a ghost. That was the night everything started changing in that house. The morning after that strange night, Chief did not come out of his room early like he used to. I swept the compound twice, boiled water, and still his door stayed shut. Normally, by 6:30, I would hear him praying or tuning his radio. But that morning, there was silence, the kind that presses your chest. When he finally came out, he looked like someone who didn't sleep. His eyes were red and swollen. He just nodded at me and went to the veranda. He sat there for long, staring into the air. I wanted to ask what happened the night before, but I knew Chief didn't like too many questions. So I went inside and cleaned the table. The food from last night was still there. I picked up the plate from the empty chair. For the first time, I noticed that Chief hadn't touched his food either. It was all cold. Later that day, Chief called me. He asked if I remembered the young man from last night. I said yes. He nodded slowly and said the boy reminded him of someone he once knew. His voice was low, as if he was talking to himself more than to me. Then he told me to make jollof rice for dinner, enough for 3 people. That was strange, because Chief never cooked for visitors twice. He said the young man might come again. I didn't understand, but I nodded. Evening came, and true to Chief's words, Ifeanyi showed up again. This time, he brought a small wine bottle as a gift. Chief's face lit up like a child's. They talked about many things, about the city, about life after retirement, about how people forget promises. I stayed in the kitchen, listening with half an ear. There was something in Chief's tone that night, something softer. It was the first time I heard him laugh that freely. When it was time to eat, I held my breath. Would the young man sit on that same chair again? He did. And Chief didn't stop him. He just smiled weakly and said, "Sit, my son." My hands trembled where I stood. As they ate, Chief kept asking him small questions. Where he was from, what his mother's name was, what kind of work he did. The answers came slowly, but every word seemed to pull Chief deeper into his thoughts. After dinner, Ifeanyi thanked him and left. Chief sat there for a long time, staring at the chair. I went close to clear the table, but he stopped me. "Leave it," he said softly. "Let it stay that way tonight." Then he looked up at me, his face full of something I couldn't name, fear, joy, or maybe both. That night, I could not sleep. From my small room, I heard Chief talking again, But this time he wasn't talking to the empty chair. He was talking to God. The next day felt different. There was something in the air I could not explain. Chief whistled as he dressed up, and that alone surprised me. He even asked me to iron his white senator wear, the one he usually kept for church events. When I brought it to him, he smiled faintly and said, "Today might be a long day." I didn't ask what he meant. I just kept watching him, because something inside me told me this day would not end normally. Around 4 in the evening, I was watering the flowers when I heard a car horn outside the gate. I opened it and saw the same young man, Ifeanyi, again. He had a nylon bag in his hand, maybe some gifts. He greeted me politely and asked if Chief was around. I nodded and called out. Chief came out immediately, smiling so wide his wrinkles almost disappeared. He told me to bring malt and 2 glasses. I obeyed quietly. They sat on the balcony, drinking and talking. I didn't mean to listen, but their voices carried. Chief was asking Ifeanyi about his mother again. The young man said she passed away last year. He said she used to talk about a man who once helped her when she was young, a man she never saw again. I stopped what I was doing and looked at Chief. His face had gone pale. He was no longer smiling. His hand shook slightly as he held the cup. "Tell me her name," he said, his voice low. The young man said her name was Adaiz. My mouth fell open. I knew that name. Chief had mentioned it once when he was talking in his sleep months ago. He said, "Adaiz, forgive me." I thought it was a dream name. But now it came back. Chief stood up slowly and went inside. When he returned, he was holding a small old photo frame. He handed it to the young man. I craned my neck to see it. It was a picture of a young woman with kind eyes wearing a wrapper tied on her chest. The young man looked at the photo and froze. Then his eyes filled with tears. He said softly, "This is my mother." For a long time, both of them sat in silence. Chief's face changed. It was like he was seeing his past standing right before him in flesh. I didn't understand everything, but I knew something deep had broken open between them. When Ifeanyi left that night, Chief didn't speak a word. He just sat down at the table, staring at the chair like before, only this time there was no fear, no sadness, just a quiet look, like someone waiting for forgiveness to finally arrive. That night, Chief did not sleep at all. I heard him moving about, drawers opening, papers falling, and his footsteps pacing from his room to the sitting room. Once I heard him sigh deeply, like a man carrying something too heavy to explain. I wanted to knock and ask if he was fine, but something stopped me. His spirit was restless, and I knew it was not the kind of thing anybody could fix with words. By morning, his eyes were red, but he looked calmer. He called me and said he wanted pepper soup and pounded yam for dinner. He spoke slowly, choosing his words. He said Ifeanyi would come again that evening, and this time he wanted me to join them for dinner. That surprised me, because Chief never liked anybody sitting at his table. He was a man who ate alone, talked alone, and even argued alone with that empty chair. I nodded and went to the market. All through the day, he was quiet but thoughtful. He kept cleaning the sitting room, dusting old books, arranging framed photos, and finally, he took down one photo from the wall. It was Madame Neka's picture. He wiped it gently with a white cloth, talking under his breath. When I passed by, I heard him say, "You were right, Neka. You were always right." Evening came, and the sound of a knock broke the silence. I opened the door, and there was Ifeanyi again, this time looking more confident, more comfortable. Chief came out, wearing his clean senator wear again, and his face carried a strange peace. They greeted warmly, and I could see something had changed between them. They were no longer strangers. As we sat to eat, the air in the room felt heavy but calm. Chief started talking slowly, telling stories about when he was young, how he once loved a woman named Adaiz, but lost her because of fear and pride. Ifeanyi listened closely, his food forgotten. Chief's voice trembled when he said, "I made mistakes that followed me like shadows. I didn't know that the child I once denied would walk into my house one day." The young man's face broke into tears. He said he didn't come to judge anyone, that his mother never told him anything bad about Chief, only that he was a good man who made one big mistake. Chief's eyes filled too, and for the first time, I saw him reach across the table and hold the boy's hand. When I looked at the empty chair, I could swear it didn't look empty anymore. It felt like Madame Neka herself was sitting there, watching quietly, satisfied that the promise she left behind was finally being kept. The next morning came with the sound of rain on the roof, soft and steady. I woke up early to make breakfast, but Chief was already awake, sitting outside under the veranda, watching the rain fall on the flowers. He looked peaceful, like a man who had finally found what he had been searching for. When he saw me, he smiled and asked if I had enough rice for the evening. He said Ifeanyi was coming again, that they would eat together one last time before he traveled back to the city. I nodded, though I didn't understand what he meant by one last time. All through the day, Chief moved around slowly, touching things in the house, arranging his books, folding his clothes, even counting the plates in the kitchen. He gave me an envelope and said, if anything ever happened to him, I should give it to his son Chijioke in Lagos. I tried to ask what was going on, but he just smiled and said, every story must close somehow. By evening, the rain had stopped. The sky was golden, and the air smelled fresh. Ifeanyi came just as I was setting the table. He greeted me warmly, then went to sit beside Chief. They talked for a long time, their voices low but full of emotion. I didn't want to interrupt, so I stayed by the door, pretending to wipe my hands. Chief told him about Nika, how she was the one who made him promise to leave that chair for Adaeze or her child, whichever found him first. He said every night he ate alone was his own way of saying sorry to the past. Afeni sat quietly, tears rolling down his cheeks. When it was time to eat, Chief told him to sit in the same chair once again. I noticed the way his hand rested on the boy's shoulder as they prayed. He said softly, this house is full now, and I can rest. I didn't fully understand then, but those words stayed in my heart. After dinner, Chief told Ifeanyi to take Madame Neka's photo with him, that it would remind him of the love that forgives. Ifeanyi refused at first, but Chief insisted until he accepted. They hugged like father and son, a long, deep hug that carried years of silence and pain. That night, the house felt lighter. I went to my room and slept deeply for the first time in weeks. But when I woke the next morning, something told me to check on Chief. I knocked on his door. No answer. I pushed it open, and there he was, lying peacefully on the bed, his face calm, his hand holding his rosary. On the table beside him were 2 plates, one empty, one half filled. The chair beside him was not empty anymore. Ifeanyi was sitting there, his head bent low, tears falling quietly. He had come early to greet Chief before traveling, only to meet him gone. The young man whispered a prayer and covered him gently with the white cloth. That evening, as I cleaned the dining table, I didn't feel afraid. I felt peace. The empty chair had done its work. It had waited until love came back home.